Welcome back to our Smooth Operator Masterclass series. Coming up in our next story is the story of feuding siblings, Sarah and Steve Reuben. I'm sure you've heard about what can go wrong in a family-owned business, but these two are going to figure out a way to come back together and save their family-owned business. Enjoy.
Welcome back. At this point, you've heard two sets of stories and how-to lessons for building business infrastructure. The first set included the story of Emily Miller and how to create a business parts analysis, followed by the story of Albert Ando and how to create a business design blueprint. If you haven't listened to those 4 episodes, then make sure you do. They contain foundational information that'll help you follow along with this next story and create business infrastructure for your own organization. Now it's time to meet our next entrepreneur, Sarah. She works at a family-owned business and is at odds with her brother. They're both blindsided when a malicious virus attacks their company's network. They're about to learn how a plan for managing their electronic records can help them go on the defense. This is episode 186, The Princess versus the Politician, the story of the Reubens and the furniture store in high demand. Sarah Reuben is currently the chief operating officer of her family's 35-year-old furniture company. She really should be CEO, and everyone seems to agree, or so she thinks. Everyone except her brother, Steve. Steve is the chief marketing officer and Sarah's nemesis. Their company thrives despite their tumultuous relationship. That is, until a virus attacked and the abrupt loss of their IT manager left their operations vulnerable. Now they must band together to fix the problem and return to normalcy. News of the attack cannot leak to their customers. Their consultant introduces them to the electronic records management element of the Kasennu framework to resolve this issue and ensure it never happens again. Just 1 week into 2015, the year was already proving to be stressful. Upon doctor's orders, Sarah Reuben decided to take a weekend getaway. It was an unusually cold and bitter day in Dahlonega, Georgia. The mountains were capped with snow, making it the perfect environment to stay indoors, drink peppermint tea, and read a good book near a fireplace. That's what Sarah intended to do. But despite the cold, she opted instead to take a walk along her nature trail to see the Amicalola Falls. She reasoned it would be the perfect place and the perfect weather to hopefully mask the smell of the freshly rolled joint she planned to smoke. Walking along the trail proved to be just as therapeutic as seeing the glorious waterfall itself. The stillness of the fresh air, along with the soothing sounds of the water rushing down the cliff and pounding against the rocks and into the creek below, made her forget about smoking altogether. After basking in the wonderment of the waterfall for a couple of hours, Sarah decided to turn around and head back to the lodge where she was staying for the weekend. She had a massage appointment. Instinctively, she pulled out her cell phone for a time check. However, she was in the middle of nowhere, and there was no cellular service. So she decided to check the time the old-fashioned way. She stopped walking long enough just to lift her wrist and look at her watch. Uh-oh, her appointment was in 10 minutes. Jogging at a speed fast enough for a fallen tree branch across the trail to go unnoticed, she tripped and almost fell. She told herself to slow down, to take her time. The spa was just as serene an environment as her walk outside. The warm earth tone colors, the trickling sounds of water, and the subtle flute music in the background helped Sarah maintain a sense of calm. She was escorted into a room where her massage would take place. When the massage therapist entered the room, she asked Sarah what type of pressure to apply, light, medium, or deep tissue, and where.
Deep tissue, please, over my entire body.
The massage therapist began applying oil to Sarah's stressed body. Her neck and shoulders were especially tense. Sarah winced in pain several times during the massage, even when the massage therapist barely touched her. As hard as she tried to relax, it was next to impossible. Her mind was racing. How can I relax, she thought. They were in the midst of their January white sale, while trying to recover from all hell breaking loose nearly 2 months ago. With her face still nestled in the face cradle, she practiced her breathing again, slowly inhaling and exhaling in a controlled fashion. Unfortunately, this didn't quiet her mind. It had the opposite effect, and Sarah felt like the controlled breathing opened a portal. Suddenly, her life post-college flashed before her as though someone had pressed a rewind button at its highest speed. Her first job out of college was at a manufacturing facility in Ohio. She gained a wealth of knowledge during her 4 years there. She resigned and began working at her family's furniture store, applying manufacturing principles she learned while in Ohio. When the time was right, she approached her father about taking a lead role in the operations of their furniture company. Her father and her uncle, co-founders of the business, thought it was a great idea when she proposed shifting the business model from reseller to manufacturer. She even pitched the idea to different employees, and each one genuinely seemed to think it was the right direction. All cylinders were fired, and Sarah was ready to execute. There was just one problem: her older brother, Steve. Steve oversaw marketing, and although he agreed that the shift could be good for business, he didn't agree that Sarah, at that time a 25-year-old, should be in charge of anything, let alone the lifeline of the company, its merchandise. To keep the peace, Sarah's dad placed her into an apprentice-type role, giving her a title, Executive in Training. Sarah worked hard applying what she learned academically as well as professionally as an industrial engineer. Over the next 5 years, they successfully transitioned to providing custom furniture only, and the company enjoyed exponential growth. Sarah received many awards in the local business community for her work. Everyone seemed to sing her praises. Everyone, that is, except Steve.
Of course he didn't. He's too busy being a politician to notice.
None of that mattered now. They were in trouble. A malicious virus recently threatened to undermine the entire company. The virus corrupted all their customer data from last year, making it difficult to manage production schedules, answer client inquiries, and reconcile payment information. In fact, more and more customers were successfully requesting chargebacks as they rightfully complained that their orders were either late or had no signs of being fulfilled. Despite Sarah's and Steve's best efforts to keep this information away from their dad, it was too late. He caught wind that the bank was threatening to freeze their account because of the chargebacks. Sarah and Steve were concerned that the bad news would cause their dad another heart attack. To top it all off, their IT manager bailed on them when they needed him most. Sarah's mind race abruptly ended, as if the stop button was pressed, just as she heard that the massage was over. Before she got up from the table to dress herself, she lifted her face from the cradle and rested her chin on top of her clenched hands, thinking, "How did we get here?" Steve Reuben was born with the gift of gab, a natural salesman. His 6-foot muscular frame, dark curly hair, and strikingly handsome good looks were usually enough to command attention before he even graced people with his baritone voice and poetic prose. His stubbornness was his only admitted flaw, but he chalked that up to being a Taurus. Talking to others was as easy for him as breathing, and he hoped today would be no exception. Although it was cold out and he had a persistent cough, Steve made it a point to go to the exclusive golf club where he was a member of. He was on a mission. His family's business was in the middle of a crisis, and with a major sale going on, it would only compound the problem. He couldn't wait to discuss this with Alton. Steve met Alton at the club several years ago, and they connected instantly. He considered Alton to not only be a good friend, but also a trusted advisor with whom he happened to share many interests, golf being one of them. It was Alton who helped clean up their company's network following the virus attack. In the process, he discovered that their network was highly susceptible to attacks vis-a-vis its liberal bring-your-own-device policy, a policy initiated by the now departed IT manager. After eating a light breakfast, Steve and Alton walked outside of the cafe overlooking the golf course. Steve wasted no time. He brought up the virus debacle before they made it to the first hole. Alton was a little shocked. Normally, they waited until at least the ninth hole to talk business, if at all. But he knew his friend's situation was desperate. Alton told Steve about a partner at his firm, Gary Cornsilk. He's a cybersecurity consultant with a strong background in risk management. They walked to the locker room after their round. Alton had to leave right away, but Steve was not as pressed to leave so soon. He dreaded the thought of going to the store, but he knew he had to. Once he packed his things from his locker, he sat down on the wooden bench between the rows of lockers and looked up into the ceiling for a few minutes. Out of nowhere, he thought of his sister Sarah. So, the princess isn't invincible after all. She claims she's the one always looking into the details. So why didn't she see through that piece of crap network we had? Suddenly, he broke it out into a cold sweat and began coughing violently. Steve suppressed the cough by drinking some warm water from his sports bottle. Then he leaned over and, with his elbows kneading into his thighs, placed his head into his cupped hands, wondering, how did we get here?
I hope you've enjoyed listening to Sarah and Steve's story. If you want to hear the full story and discover how Gary helps them create an electronic records management system that saves their company from ruin, then here's two things you can do. First, you can buy my book. It's called Behind the Facade: How to Structure Company Operations for Sustainable Success. Sarah and Steve's story is featured in Chapter 4. If you want to actually see how to do the work that Gary did with Sarah and Steve, then the second thing you can do is sign up for the online Smooth Operator Masterclass. There, you'll see video demonstrations that will show you exactly how to create your own electronic records management system and prove once and for all your business's capability to deliver results. Don't forget to click the link below in the description box to sign up at smoothoperator.courses. That's smoothoperator.courses.
See you in the next video.